Welcome to the Veterinary Blueprint Podcast, brought to you by Butler Vet Insurance, hosted by Bill Butler. The Veterinary Blueprint Podcast is for veterinarians and practice managers who are looking to learn about working on their practice instead of in their practice. Each episode, we will bring you successful, proven blueprints from others both inside and outside the veterinary industry. Welcome to today's episode.
Welcome to the Veterinary Blueprints Podcast, where business ideas and entrepreneurship meet the veterinary industry. I am your host, Bill Butler. And today, now I don't know when this will air, but this is our first recording of 2024. So I'm excited to have Dr. Samantha Vitale with us. Professionally, Samantha shines as a board-certified veterinary neurologist, but she has focused her dedication in the last couple of years to solving some industry challenges in the veterinary community. And that's evident based on her belief that veterinary professionals deserve the tools and resources for world-class patient care and help them fulfill their careers as healthcare professionals in the animal health space. Her own experiences as a veterinarian in remote areas ignited her desire to ensure that all pets, regardless of location, can receive top-tier veterinary care. After a successful career in private practice, Samantha has embraced innovation after seeing the need in the animal health space that's very prevalent in human health. And now she is the CEO of Stratocyte, which is a startup giving access to veterinary specialists, not just in the United States, but worldwide via teleconsulting. So her mission is to help bring specialty care everywhere to every pet and pet owner and veterinarian. And today we'll talk about some of her journey along with her, what she sees as some of the future for veterinary medicine. So let's dive in. Welcome, Samantha.
Hi, Bill. Thanks so much for having me and for that introduction.
Well, you and I connected on LinkedIn as I'm connecting with many professionals in the industry like yourself. And we wound up having a conversation about some stuff, and it seemed like there's a need for what you're doing in the industry. So why don't you just, before we dive into what Stratocyte is and what teleconsulting is for veterinarians who aren't experiencing that, why don't you just kind of give us a very brief overview of you and what you've done to get where you are right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm originally from Memphis, Tennessee. I wanted to be a veterinarian since I found out what a veterinarian was. So just focused all of my childhood on trying to get into vet school. I went to Mississippi State University for undergrad and vet school, had a great experience there, and then ended up deciding I wanted to specialize in neurology during my clinical years of vet school. So I was fortunate enough to get accepted into a couple of internships and then a residency program, which landed me in central Illinois in the Midwest, where I'm not at all familiar with the concept of winter, but I'm now very familiar with.
Yep.
Did my residency at the University of Illinois and ended up loving the Midwest, getting married, and moving here permanently. So here we are.
So here you are. And so, I think people look at the Midwest and they think, oh, they hear Illinois and they think Chicago.
Correct.
But if you drive south from Chicago for about 2 hours, you wind up in the middle of nowhere.
Yes. There's a whole other state. It's very, very different from Chicago.
There's Chicago and then the rest of Illinois.
Yes, exactly. So, doing my residency at the U of I in Champaign, we were about 3 hours south of Chicago, about an hour and a half from Indy, and about 3 hours from St. Louis. And we were the only veterinary specialty center in the center of the state, really south of Chicago. So we had people from all over Illinois, Southern Illinois, Bloomington, Peoria, Springfield, sure, kind of the whole central and south part of the state, driving hours to see any of our various specialists. So that kind of started helping me recognize that there is a little bit of a geographical issue with
planted a seed, right?
Exactly. Like people want to seek, certain level of specialty care, but when they're having to drive 3 hours one way just to see a specialist for an appointment, that is an inconvenience. It's a hardship. Not everyone can do that. And it adds to the overall cost of the veterinary.
Absolutely. Yep.
And then because I lived in the Midwest and I moved to Springfield, there's no veterinary specialty hospitals in Springfield. So I ended up working as a locum neurologist, actually. So every other week I flew to South Florida and worked at a large specialty hospital in South Florida, which was fun. And then when I wasn't working, I was kind of working behind the scenes.
Especially in like January, February.
That was great. Yes. Left my poor husband with the dog and the chickens. So good luck. Go to the beach.
Yeah. So we're in the Twin Cities metro area of Minneapolis, St. Paul. And I think if you're in the Twin Cities metro area of Minneapolis, St. Paul, there's access. We have specialty care. We have a couple of emergency care facilities that have board certified cardiologists and board certified, small animal and board certified, neurology as your specialty. But if you drive an hour in any direction from, Minneapolis, St. Paul International Airport, you are going to be in a cornfield.
Yes.
And so, for that pet owner or that veterinarian specifically, when you talk about trying to provide care, I think that the level of care that's available now for pet owners, specifically, companion animal, is just so much different than it was 20 years ago. And I wasn't involved in this 20 years ago, but even in the 5 or so years that we've really been active in the veterinary community with my industry, it's changing quite a bit. Mm-hmm. And so you saw that change. You saw a need, like there's just areas of the country where pet owners don't have access to specialty care. And so talk about some of the evolution, or, you identified this issue. What did you think was kind of a next logical step for veterinary care from your viewpoint? Because you're still in middle central Illinois, right?
Yes. Yep. I'm still in central Illinois, and I still don't have a day job at a specialty hospital, which is fine because I really like my day job running this company. So, there's always going to be a place for in-person veterinary referral. There's always going to be a surgery that you need to do a residency to train to do. There's always going to be diagnostic equipment that it doesn't make sense for a GP to have in their practice. There's always going to be the need for a veterinary specialist to put their hands on an animal, to do a procedure, to have that in-person, consultation experience. But just because there's a need for that doesn't mean that there is always the opportunity or ability for that pet to get to that specialist for whatever reason. Either geography, the pet owner physically can't or won't drive to see someone, wait times, even in like New York City, where there's tons of specialty hospitals, we're seeing wait times of months just to get in to see a specialist. Maybe they can't get in, but they don't want to wait 2 months to see someone about their dog's cancer. Or maybe they're just, for whatever reason, that pet is maybe they're not stable enough to travel to another hospital. So there's always going to be reasons why pets that would benefit from seeing a specialist in person are not going to get to see a specialist in person, at least not right away. And we wanted to create a plan B for that pet that was better than sorry, it's all or nothing, So having the opportunity to consult remotely with a specialist and have their expertise weigh in and be able to make the most of what resources that veterinarian who's caring for that pet has in their clinic is a great option for those pets that can't travel. And then there's also specialty cases that don't necessarily need to go see the specialist, but could still benefit from their management, their input, their expertise on a remote basis. And when we're dealing with a specialist shortage, not only because of geography, but just because there's only 450 board certified veterinary neurologists in North America. There's obviously not enough to go around to every city. So there's just, we're spread thin, and the ones that are in practice full time need to be doing the procedures, need to be seeing the cases that need those advanced skills and that advanced equipment. And maybe the ones that just need a consultation, or the owner just wants their opinion before they think about making the drive. There's a lot of indications where remote consultation can take the place of an initial or an in-person visit.
So, as far as in my family, we actually just kind of went through this, right? So, if you're a pet owner, putting on the pet owner's hat, right? A lot of times when you need to see that specialist, it's really that kind of once in that pet's life's decision of, are we going to proceed down path A, which is a course of treatment, thinking about, you had mentioned cancer, right? And so I think for that pet owner, it's one of those things where the general practitioner can give some of that quality of life. Like, okay, if you decide not to treat, the cancer, this is what's going to happen over the next probably 2 to 6 months. I mean, realistically, I had a cat that was 18 years old, had a lymphoma, and it was, okay, we're going to do some sub-Q fluids. You can do these at home. If the cat gets bad, you can come in and we might be able to do some stuff, but it's probably not worth doing anything. So it's managing the quality of life for the animal until it's too far gone. But if you're going to make that decision, it's, as a pet owner, it's, okay, are we going to go down path A, which is a treatment protocol, which is potentially thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. And if I'm going to do that, the general practitioner might want, it's the one-time consult with the oncologist to say, this is what you're going to do, and this is how long it's going to go, and this is what it is, versus just the general practitioner going, well, if you want to do that, it's this, but helping that pet owner make that kind of A or B decision. Like, if we're going to go down this path, it's this. If we're not going to go down this path, it's that. Does that accurately describe some of those decisions that you need to make up front of that course of treatment?
Yeah, that's one really good indication, is sometimes when you're initially faced with a complex diagnosis, and you're wanting to help the pet owner make those decisions. Yeah. Should I pursue surgery? Should I try chemo? Should I try X, Y, and Z? There's a new treatment, but I haven't had a chance to use it yet. I don't have any personal basis of how this is going to affect your pet. Having that specialist with expertise in that area come in and say, these are your 3 options. These are the studies and my own personal experience that support your, expected outcomes for each of these 3 options. Because we as veterinarians, it's impossible to keep up with every single study and every single discipline that comes out. So having someone that's saying like, oh yeah, no, I wrote that paper, this is actually what we can expect in this situation, can be very helpful. I think the other indication for that is when you have chronic cases that are complex and need lifelong management.
Sure.
When you have chronic cases that need lifelong management and are maybe not routine. So when you have a patient with epilepsy, a seizure disorder, and the seizures are very difficult to control, they're not responding to medications that you're comfortable prescribing. When you've got a diabetic that's not very responsive to therapy, when you've got a case that is very difficult to diagnose, sometimes being able to bring the specialist in, have that kind of collaborative care in your practice, can be a lot more accessible and affordable for the owner than if they have to drive 3 hours every time they need to recheck their diabetic patient's blood glucose or something like that.
Sure. I even think about my mom with her dog. They had a Gordon Setter, and for her to need to go to the specialty clinic, just for an oral exam was an hour, and they may have been able to do, and that's even in the Twin Cities, right? That's, even if you think about Chicago, if you're trying to go see a specialist from the north side of Chicago to the south side of Chicago, that could be a 4-hour drive depending on the day and road construction. And so, having accessibility to not necessarily that in person, as you mentioned, there will always be a place in the medical profession, whether it's animal or human health, of that in-person, hands-on, hey, let's see the animal walk across the floor, or what's their disposition in person versus here's how they're presenting. What do you think, specialist?
Yeah. And the nice thing about, at least with our platform, is we do have video capabilities. So the specialist can do some extent of the exam with the general practitioner. So they can watch the animal, observe them in the exam room, observe them in the environment. They can also, send and receive videos of the exam that the specialist is doing. So we do have a lot of ways to kind of have that specialist be part of the exam process. So we try to mitigate that distance as much as we can.
So that kind of leads me to a question that I have about for a busy general practitioner. And I'd say every general practitioner out there is probably busy. Whether you're, a solo practitioner, you've got 5 associates working for you, you're probably busy. How can they incorporate teleconsulting into their practice if they're not utilizing this now and they're just referring to the, hey, here's this emergency practice that has, Dr. Samantha's 4 hours away in Springfield. You're in Champaign or something. How would I incorporate that into my practice?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's something that would be great to have a plan in place and discuss with your team ahead of time, because it is very hard when you're in the middle of a busy day. You're like, man, I do not know what to do next for this patient's diabetes. Oh yeah, maybe I should log into my Stratocyte account and try to, even if it's a relatively intuitive, easy to use thing, it's very hard to adopt a new skill and habit in the middle of your busy workflow. So I encourage people to try to build using teleconsulting into your existing SOPs, into your existing plans for how you work up and manage cases. And we're doing things like this already, right? If you have digital radiology in your clinic, you're taking x-rays digitally, you're more than likely, at least some of the time, sending those images to a radiologist.
Sure.
To get a report back. Or if you're doing a biopsy, you're more than likely sending that sample off to the lab for pathology. So we're already in the habit of offering this as, having a specialist or another expert's opinion as a service to complement what we're providing. So I would encourage people, let's say that you're in a GP practice, you're going to spay a patient, right? You already have a standard operating procedure in place. You already have an estimate in place, standard things you're going to do. Okay, we're going to do a physical exam. We're probably going to do some, in-house pre-anesthetic blood work. We're going to come up with an anesthesia protocol, and we're going to come up with a post-operative pain management plan and at-home monitoring plan for the patient when they go home, right? So if you add into that, okay, this patient is a high-risk anesthesia candidate. Mm-hmm. They're unstable, or
which was my parents. Gordon Sutter was a high risk anesthesia patient who would take 7 hours to wake up from anesthesia. My mom's like, "Can I get my dog?" And they're like, "It's not awake yet."
Right. Or the client is nervous about anesthesia because they've had a bad experience in the past. Okay, well, guess what? As part of our surgery package, we also offer a customized anesthesia consultation with a board-certified anesthesiologist who's going to review your patient's records, their previous response to therapy, the medications that we have available for this. They're going to come up with a plan of what to use, how to monitor, what to look for, and they're going to submit that to us, and we're going to use their advice, and we'll be able to contact them if we need to, if there's any complications.
Sure.
So having that kind of built into your SOP for those high-risk candidates or concerned owners, or if you have a patient that you believe has cancer and you take a sample of the suspected tumor and you send it out for cytology or for biopsy or what have you, you get those results back. Now the next step in that diagnostic process is submitting that case to an oncologist to get the list of options that we have, present that accurately to the owner, and have them decide which route they want to take. So just having that part of your workflow as it is, starting to think of it not as like, oh, this is my backup plan for I don't know what to do with this case and now I have to try to figure it out when I'm busy, but having it kind of built into your routine of when I have this type of case come in, I can offer these services as diagnostics and treatments. And
Sure.
This is one of the services that we have to offer our clients to enhance the level of care that we can provide.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
This episode of the Veterinary Blueprint Podcast is sponsored by Butler Vet Insurance. Being an insurance agent at Butler Vet Insurance, I've seen firsthand the difficulties veterinarians face insuring their practices. But do you know that we wrote the book on veterinary insurance? It's called Protecting Your Veterinary Practice: Insider Insurance Secrets Every Veterinarian Must Know. It's not just a book, it's a comprehensive guide that speaks to the unique challenges and insurance solutions for the veterinary community. With over 20 years experience from cyber liability to business auto and workers' compensation, our aim at Butler Vet Insurance is to reduce the stress of insurance for those dedicated to animal care. If you're a veterinary practice owner or manager and looking for some guidance on your insurance, follow our insurance blueprint. Discover the Butler Vet Insurance difference. And together, let's put the pieces of the puzzle together. Butler Vet Insurance, reducing the stress of insurance. So, that teleconsulting to build your practice and increase revenues, because at the end of the day, it's the care and services. It's the, hey, would you like fries with that mentality of offering the extra component of saying, well, yep, your dog has had bad reaction to anesthesia in the past. Would you like us on the next surgery we do? Would you like a consultation with a board certified anesthesiologist? My mom would have said yes 10 times out of 10 and said, yeah, I'll pay for the extra consultation to make sure that we're on the right page. And so, your platform, Stratocyte, how, number one, how many platforms are there out there? Not talking about competitors, but, if you're a veterinary practice that wants to incorporate that, obviously Stratocyte is a place to do that. What's out there in the market right now, and why did you see a need to build something?
Yeah, great question. So when we first started the company, we didn't start out as let's build a platform. We're not tech people, we're veterinarians. Yep. Myself and a couple colleagues started out as like, let's consult, let's put ourselves out there, let's offer consultations to other veterinarians. So you started this as you're offering the consultations. How do we do consultations? Because we're in the middle of nowhere. I don't want to I don't want to live in Florida. I love the Midwest, but I want to be able to offer my board certified neurology services, even though I'm in small rural Illinois. Right. And so when we started that process, we quickly figured out at the time there was nothing really available for specialists as a resource trying to start this business on their own. So we were basically doing our own marketing, like calling vet clinics, hey, do you want to consult? Going and using like email and Google Drive and stuff to send cases. And where do you store these files? Is this secure? Do I just keep this on my laptop? All of the and then the accounting and the invoicing and all of the kind of administrative things that go into running a consulting business, started to realize it would be great especially for these busy practitioners that are still in specialty practice, full or part-time, and are just trying to do this on the side, instead of them having to quit their job and work for a big corporation as a consultant, or instead of them having to hire someone to build a business for them. Why don't we just build a business that they can walk into? And so that's why we built this as a marketplace. As far as I know, we're the only veterinary teleconsulting marketplace. There are a handful of other consulting companies, either independent veterinarians that are doing their own thing on the side. IDEX and Antech, some of the bigger companies, will hire specialists to act as consultants for their customers. There are some radiology groups that are now offering kind of specialist consultations as an additional service. So there are other people trying to do it. What we built and what we wanted to design was something that would be accessible to every single specialist that wanted to consult.
So on both sides, right? So you built a platform on one side for the general practitioner to be able to access specialists, but then you also built a platform where the specialists can say, hey, I'm available. So I've used Fiverr, and I don't know if anyone's ever heard of Fiverr, but Fiverr is basically it's a service. You go out there and say, hey, I need a graphic designer. You put the bid out, and the whoever somewhere in the world will do a voiceover, they'll do a marketing program for you, they'll design a logo. And so it's really where you're matching up somebody's talents with somebody who says, hey, I need somebody to do a voiceover for me. And you go out to this service and you hire somebody to do a voiceover.
It's a marketplace, so it's kind of most similar to Etsy. We compare it to
that
Etsy.
Was actually, I was going to ask that. I was going to say, I was like, oh, is this, you really built the Etsy of veterinary consulting?
Yeah, we call ourselves the Etsy of veterinary specialty.
Okay, good. That was actually the question I was going to ask, Samantha. It's like, forgive me for saying this, but this feels like it's Etsy, where if somebody has a very successful, lucrative practice as a board certified cardiologist in Minnesota, but they'd like to do some side hustle consulting, it's really the ability to do some side hustle consulting as a board certified cardiologist.
Right, exactly. And we have a lot of people in academia who work in universities that like this, because they do get some off clinic time where they do teaching and research and things like that, and they're allowed to do some consulting work in that off clinic time. So this is, I mean, it can be if you build up a successful enough consulting business and you want to consult full time, great. But this is designed so that instead of having to take someone out of private practice, hire them to be available when we need them, we can have anybody be available to the extent that they want. So all of our specialists are independent. They create a free account. They work for themselves. They set their own prices and services and schedule. And then we just have this basically platform available where when a vet needs a specialist, they search for the specialist they need. They can say, I need a cardiologist that's available today. And then they can see who's available today, what services they offer, find someone that meets their patient's needs, and book the appointment. So we basically just took all of the administrative work out of both ends of that and just made it an easy place where they can come and connect.
So I'm not a regulatory wonk. I don't understand all the, every state is different. It's all regulated by the Board of Animal Health or whatever they call themselves in each state, because they're all different. Mm-hmm. So how does that work with, not in, we mentioned the worldwide component, obviously, you're looking to build a worldwide empire here of teleconsulting. How does that work from a regulatory standpoint, state to state, insurance, professional liability, all of those things?
This is a question that we get a lot, and I think it's really important to kind of understand the different types of telehealth and the different regulations that are assigned to each one of them. Because I have seen a lot of instances where people will use all these terms interchangeably and sometimes incorrectly. And that's where it gets a little bit confusing. So
before we started this, I even said telemedicine. You're like, it's not telemedicine, it's teleconsulting. Right. So, yeah. Let's be clear about what we're actually doing. So Stratocyte and what you're offering and what you're talking about inside the veterinary animal health community is teleconsulting.
Teleconsulting, yeah. And the American Veterinary Medical Association defines teleconsulting as the process by which a veterinary specialist or other qualified expert provides advice to another veterinarian. So we are 100% vet to vet. Our consultants cannot, should not, and will not directly communicate with a pet or a pet owner. They will not prescribe medications. They will not make a diagnosis. They will not be the doctor on this case. They are simply providing their expertise to a colleague who acts as the veterinarian on the case, as the prescribing veterinarian. And the key thing here is veterinarian client-patient relationship. So that's like the legal term that defines how a veterinarian can interact with a client and a patient. So any veterinarian that makes a diagnosis, makes patient-specific recommendations directly to the client, or prescribes medications has to have this veterinarian client-patient relationship, VCPR, we'll call it for short. And that means they have to know the patient's history. They have to have a legal signed relationship with the legal owner of the pet. They have to have examined the patient in some capacity. They have to provide follow-up and maintain medical records for that patient. So our consultants do not have to have a VCPR. They do not have a relationship with the client. They're simply providing recommendations to the veterinarian that holds the VCPR. And so that's different from telemedicine.
So in layman's terms, you've created a phone a friend platform for advice for veterinarians. Hey, I need help with the answer to this question. I don't know what to do. Or I think this is appropriate. Or, the anesthesia case. Yeah, we've just got a problematic case here. We need to have a board certified anesthesiologist. And I think that it's one of those things, right, where I think most veterinarians could go find the answer somewhere. The answer's out there.
Right.
For them to go find it.
Right.
But it's the time, it's the work involved. It's, hey, I had a colleague one time. Are they still doing this? Or, for a lot of the specialists out there, board certified specialists, they put out papers. There's papers on this stuff. But from a medical professional's perspective, from that general practitioner, to go try and find the protocol for anesthesia, to do that at my practice, I just don't have time for that. And I might be looking at outdated information, and there's new stuff out there that board certified specialists in anesthesiology or neurology or cardiology, orthopedics have that information because they're in it every day.
Right. And what's more than that is it turns like, okay, I'm going to go stop what I'm doing and scroll through all these journal articles and try to find something and interpret it and understand it. Or I'm going to text someone I went to vet school with and hope they're, not out of the country.
Available today. Yeah.
It turns that process into, I am going to send all of the information specific to my patient to an expert that has extensive experience in managing cases like this. And they are going to provide me with a verbal and a written report that I can then put in my patient's record, show to the client, monetize, and show that value to the client of, hey, I consulted with an expert in this. Their experience combined with my examination leads us to these recommendations. Here is the official report from that. And it gives that veterinarian who requested the service the opportunity to monetize that as well, right? Because they should be. It's very hard to go to your client and say, oh yeah, my roommate in vet school is a neurologist now. I texted her. She said she likes Keppra. Can I have $50? That no one can monetize that, right? What are you going to put that in your medical record? Like, yeah, I called my old roommate and she said to do Keppra. But if you have like an actual consultation,
a protocol,
right? And you get an actual form that goes in that patient's record. You have results. You have results from a diagnostic test that just happened to be a consultation. And you can use that not only to make the best decisions for your patient, but to supplement your medical record and show that you're practicing the highest quality of medicine possible in that situation.
Well, and give the pet owner the ability to make the decision, that's in the best interest of their, that their animal that they're in charge of, that they're responsible for care, what they might financially be able to do. With my cat, 18 years old, had lymphoma, and they said, well, we could see if it's I was wobbling around and it was in bad shape. And it was like, well, do you want to determine if this is really lymphoma? Because there's really only a couple of ways to do it. We could see if it's a brain, I think it's brain parasites they thought it may have been, or some neurology issues. They said, well, we could do a CT scan. I said, well, what's a CT scan cost me? And they said, well, it's going to be $2,500. And I was like, man, I love you, Betty Boop, but that's a tough call to make at 18. But being able to offer the service and the idea. And so, to your point, again, kind of dumb it down because I'm a simple guy, is, hey, would you like me to call my buddy Steve? Or would you like me to offer this service that's part of our protocol that we put in place, and we have a procedure for this? And, our cost to the practice to be able to, maybe you're in an urban area or a suburban area, but, I see this really as you're offering a service to veterinarians who don't have access to this kind of, here's a referral to a cardiologist who's a half an hour away. We don't have access to this. And so would you like, we're now offering this service. So talk about talked about kind of building this inside the practice. What are some of the revenue, how to build this as a revenue stream and kind of finish that thought out?
Yeah, that's a great point, because if you're thinking about it from the perspective of a practice owner or a veterinarian that's trying to build their client base, build their practice, you've got multiple options with using teleconsulting to build revenue. So first and foremost, the actual consult. Well, the nice thing is for people that are using teleconsulting, at least through Stratocyte, there's zero overhead. So it costs you nothing to sign up. There's no risk. You can sign up and never use it. It doesn't cost you a dime. If you do use it, you only pay when you do a consult. And of course, you charge the client for that consult. So it costs you $0 at a baseline. Then you have the opportunity to mark it up so that you make some money from that transaction. You cover.
You could give vaccines away at cost, but you don't.
Right, exactly. You mark everything up. You should. You're covering your time.
Cost of goods.
The cost of your, technician submitting the consult for you, or however you do it. So you can make some money off of that, however much you want to mark it up, right? But then from that, if you had sent that patient to a specialist in another hospital, they're going to get there. That specialist is going to say, all right, I want to do these tests. I want to prescribe these treatments, and I want to do this procedure, and I want you to come back for these rechecks. All of that revenue now goes to that specialist.
Yeah, it's at the specialty clinic.
Right. You diagnose a 1-year-old dog with seizures, you send them to a neurologist. That for the next 10, 15 years of that dog's life, 2, 3, 4 times a year, they're going to see that person for blood work, for refills, for checkups.
When 80% of that could have been done in your practice, the blood work,
all that
the
revenue,
medication, like all of that stuff. Maybe there's maybe 20% of that care needs to be done at a referral center 4 hours away, but the parents, the client, get to make that decision. But then 80% of that work, that actually happened with my wife in the human world, right? So she was sick in 2016. She had cancer. And we did a consult at Mayo Clinic, and Mayo Clinic said the protocol that she's on for chemo, you could do here, but we would recommend, that's what we would have prescribed if you had come here at Mayo, but, she's doing that at the local hospital. And so, as a practice, you can say, well, we're giving money away because we're allowing all of that care to happen at a third-party facility versus happening at our facility. And so if we teleconsult some of these cases, even if it's in a metro area where you could refer some of that out, if you do the initial teleconsult, they could prescribe a protocol, and you're doing the chemo on site. You're prescribing the specialty medication, specialty food, all the labs, all of that could be done on site by you. And then, maybe the one visit a year by the specialist locally at the referral center for the one thing they need to be seen by hands-on to maybe do the TPLO surgery or whatever.
Right. So there's so much that you can keep in your practice, not only in terms of revenue, but in terms of that relationship with that client. And so I think there's a lot of opportunities for practitioners to really benefit from using teleconsulting, not only building revenue, keeping your clients in your clinic, keeping those relationships. There's also some degree of peace of mind that comes with having acquired a second opinion as well. I know I love a second opinion, especially on non-neurology things. Like it's funny. I work one day a week at a general practice here locally, just to kind of keep my skills up and like have fun and see animals. And you should see the questions that I ask the guy who owns the practice. I'm like, so fleas, like what are we doing for fleas these days? Because this has been so long since I've seen general practice stuff. So I love a second opinion. I'm all about consulting for anything outside of my area of expertise. So it's all about that kind of peace of mind of knowing that, like, yes, not only do I think this is the right treatment for this patient, so does this expert in this field. I'm going to sleep well tonight knowing that I did the best that I could for my patient.
And, at the end of the day, you gave them the opportunity to decide, I'll do the small investment, in the case of my cat, right? Like, I don't think I would have spent $2,500. Ultimately we decided to have her put down when it got too bad because that was the right decision to make. I wasn't ready to spend $2,500, but if they had said, well, we could do a teleconsult for $200 or $300, whatever that number is. I mean, I wasn't ready to write a $2,500 check for an 18-year-old cat who had, most likely lymphoma, because that's not a good prognosis. But if they said, well, here's a $300 consult we could do with a neurologist, with somebody to say, yeah, here's the stuff, I probably would have written a check for $300 or $400 to do a consult versus, $2,000 or $3,000 for a CT scan. And so, and also for the patient, putting myself in, because that's my world. I've never been a veterinarian. It's giving me peace of mind knowing that I did everything I could do within my financial budget to say, yeah, I made the right decision, and giving those tools and resources to the pet owner for the pet care.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, most pet owners want to do what's best for their pet, and whether you can or can't afford something doesn't dictate whether you're making the right decision for your pet.
Yep.
All about being able to provide people with as much information as we can provide them and help them to make an informed decision, and a decision that they're comfortable with.
Because as much as Betty Boop would talk to me and say water, I thought she would say in water when she's standing on the bathroom sink. We coached her for 18 years to say wah wah when she would meow to turn on the sink for her. She couldn't say that she was in pain. And so, that's as the pet owner hat, because that's the only hat that I have, is just, trying to figure out how to do the best thing that we can for them. And that's why it was so interesting to hear that, there's just not a lot of this out there. I think in the human health world, there's a ton of, that's where I think the telemedicine world comes from, is that's the easy keyword versus teleconsulting, because really the veterinarian, the general practitioner, your vet who you see every day is the one doing all the prescribing, and they're just phoning a friend. And it sounds like, so let me put on my sales hat for a moment, because that's the hat that I wear when I'm not on the podcast. So you've developed a free platform that the consultant can sign up for free to go check it out, that the general practitioner can go check out for free, and just say, hey, if I ever need this, here's this platform that I could maybe use at some point in the future, and then figure out how to monetize at my practice as an additional fee or service that we could charge.
Yes.
Free. So that sounds like a pretty good deal. So for veterinarians out there who are listening to this, Stratocyte.com, STRATOCYTE.com. Go check it out. We'll have some of that information in the show notes. And this unfortunately will not come out before VMX, but you're starting now. So you've spent a couple of years building this platform out, and now you're out in the world starting to promote this platform. So you're at some of the national events, and we'll have the information about how people can reach out to you online as well. So it's been awesome to have you on, Samantha. Where can people find you online or reach out to you and your team?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been a lot of fun. Any veterinarian can go to stratocyte.com and, like you said, set up a free account to check it out. We are on LinkedIn at Stratocyte, and we're also on Instagram at Stratocyte. For the new year, we're launching some fun educational series.
Cool.
So our Instagram will be featuring every month. We'll be working through management of a different disease process, and we'll have some exclusive content for the people that are signed up and part of the Stratocyte community. And we'll have some newsletters and things on LinkedIn as well. So we would love to have people come check us out.
Well, awesome. Thanks so much, Samantha. Any last words of advice for a veterinarian out there who's thinking, I don't know that I would ever want to do that? What would you say to them?
Well, I would say that you really have nothing to lose by trying teleconsulting, especially if you are part of a platform that doesn't charge a subscription fee or anything like that. And that we as specialists are here not to make anyone feel bad about how they've managed a case previously or to judge anyone or anything like that. We're all just here to collaborate and to provide support and encouragement for our colleagues and to bring the best level of care to every patient possible. And so we are veterinarians. We love veterinarians. We respect veterinarians. And we really just wanted to build something that would make veterinarians' lives better. So we hope to accomplish that in the coming years.
Well, thanks so much. I couldn't have said it better myself. So if you're out there and you're looking for, if you're in a specialist desert, like a food desert, if you're in a specialist desert somewhere in rural middle America, as we are in the upper Midwest, or if you just can't, if it's 3 months to get in and a specialist in New York City, check out Stratocyte. Well, thanks so much for joining us today, Samantha. And as always, for all of our listeners, make sure to like, comment, and review the podcast. Share it with your friends out there in the veterinary world. And we look forward to having you join us on a future episode. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to Veterinary Blueprints. If you have any thoughts, questions, or suggestions for an episode, I would love to hear from you. Email me at bill@butlervetinsurance.com. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you could do me a huge favor, it helps with the algorithm. If you can like, share, or comment on the post, leave a review, I would love it. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time.